So, can we talk about young players right now and what they're doing and how they're moving? I don't like this. I mean, recently in the NBA, we've seen an uproar in people, players, etc., being more prone to do whatever they want after they get an NBA contract, right? Or do anything for a contract and then after they get it, just completely disappear. The three main examples that I want to talk about today are Zion Williamson, John Morant, and Miles Bridges. I don't know if I'll cover all of them, but I'll try. First, I want to talk about Ja. Ja was a really good story because Ja came into the NBA and he was just a heartfelt kid who everybody liked. Everybody wanted, to be like him. He was a kid who was humble always, played phenomenally in AAU, and had just, in college had been one of the best prospects. But when he got to the NBA, he was the second overall pick just because Zion was in the draft. It's the same thing like with Melo. It was the same Melo situation where it's like you're only second because there's just a behemoth of a pick in front of you. It's the same thing that this year happened with Scoot. It's like you guys are good picks, or you guys at least project to be phenomenal, and you guys are number one pick, worthy. But just because of the draft class you landed in, you have to be second because there's just a monster at first, a generational prospect, right? So we see these things all the time, and Ja went too, right? He went to the Grizzlies, and it was pretty known that he was going to be second. The big three that year was Zion, Ja, and RJ Barrett, and we could tell that year that was going to be a special draft class from the start. It was a very good top three, and we could see that it really was shaped a lot by talent, explosiveness, driving, body. You could see it. Ja and Zion are the two most explosive players in the NBA by far, and one of them is like 300 pounds, and he still can get his head to the rim. And that's crazy. So he worked his butt off for a contract. He played every year very hard. He got into the playoffs. He got the Grizzlies into the playoffs, even beating the Warriors in the play-in tournament, which was like the biggest achievement of all time for them in 2022. And he basically played a lot, played great, and was waiting. And people and him, as time went on, were expecting a superstar jump. And that's exactly what happened in 2023. Ja just in 2022, Ja was great, right? And that's when he really went into his own. And by 2023, Ja was one of the best players in the league. For those 2 years, he really elevated his game. He started averaging 27 points. He started being the leader of his team. He started, shaping how the Grizzlies played the game and who they traded for. It was all around Ja. Because for the last 2 years before that, they were just trying to figure out who is Ja going to be. Because that's what you do with a young star. You're like, okay, what are you going to be? So we could preemptively equip you with guys who are going to help that. That's why you see that in the Spurs, they don't have any big men, and they just have a bunch of guards and wings. Because they know, they have Shohan, which is a rebounder, and like a hustle guy, right? Then they have a guy like Devin Vassell, which is a scorer, Keldon Johnson, which is also a versatile wing, etc. And you could tell that they're just going to move pieces around until they can find who fits with Wembanyama. That's the same thing that they're doing, and they did with Ja until 2022, when he broke out as a superstar. In 2021, he had beat the Warriors. Next year, they beat them. What gives, the Warriors were a championship team. They won the championship that year. And then after he got his contract, which was like $200 million, he just instantly went and just like went down a spiral. First, it started off slow with like guns and stuff like that. Not guns, with fights and like Ja's personality. But then in 2023, it reached a melting point when Ja was found and seen with guns and in a strip club, and it looks like the money got to him, And then we saw that, and as an NBA player, he lost a lot but then he recuperated because he apologized and he gave his media tour. And the same thing is now happening with Zion. He's not giving his media tour yet, but Zion Williamson did the same thing. But his career is different. Zion came into the league as the guy. The guy. He played for a year, he did phenomenal. Then he got injured for the next, and then he played for the other year. He got injured again. And then by the time it reached 2022, it was like just the Zion weight party. It's like we've seen what you can do. And he had problems with his weight, and people knew that his feet could just not handle jumping that high and falling that much on 250 to 300 pounds. And then Zion, as a player, got money. He got the same type of money as Ja, which was like 200 something million or 200 million. And then after he did that, like a year later in 2023, now we find out that Zion has been texting P stars, right? Like adult film stars. And he's been flying them out. He's been cheating on the girl who he had a baby with. And he has all these women, and he has one which apparently now she's saying that he beat her. Now, of course, we don't know if that's real because this woman, all she wants is attention from this situation. If she would actually have problems with Zion, she would take it up to him personally. But let's face it, like, this is a superstar. We're not talking about Jalen Brunson, a high-tier all-star. But if Jalen Brunson does something, 90% of the NBA world is not going to care. Knicks fans are going to defend him, and then the rest of the NBA is not going to. We're talking about Zion, the next LeBron. That was his name, the next LeBron. And so that caused the whole situation. And now, it's like, is he a cancer for your team? Because now you have these situations, you know what he's doing with the money that you gave him. And now it's like he can't even play most of the games because when he plays, he's a superstar and his team is good. But when he doesn't play, he's doing all this stuff, and that's what he's doing. He's not, putting in the grind and keeping one girl and whatever. It's sad to see. And then finally, the last example which we have in the NBA is Miles Bridges. And if we're going to be real right now, Miles Bridges' situation is just more than bad. It's horrible. Miles Bridges came into the league as like a highly touted prospect. He was thought to be one of these guys who was going to be good. And then for a few years, he just like kind of just was figuring himself out until 2022, if I'm not mistaken. In 2022, it was his contract year. It was the year that people knew that, this season he becomes a free agent, so he's dropped 20 a game. LaMelo helped him a lot, and then he just basically reinvented himself, became stronger, more confident, and basically just said, you know what? I'm just gonna be the best player I can. My contract is coming up. I need the contract, I need the money, whatever, etc. And after he did that, he just went on a tear for a season. And then when he finally was going to get his contract, it was not the offseason yet, but it was close enough to the point where he had already had a good $100 to $150 million contract secured. He then went and beat his girlfriend in front of his baby and was really abusive and just had a bunch of allegations, which turned out to be real after being tested. And I mean, even though he is facing legal repercussions for that, because let's face it, Morant got off clean and Zion's thing is just being a freak, we do have to speak about, like, what are young stars getting taught? What are the young stars in the NBA getting taught? As we see cases like Zion Williamson, Morant, and Miles Bridges, which come up, and then we see other cases like Jalen Green, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, if Jalen Green and Josh Christopher or something, they're together, then that's cool, but it's like, what are we doing to send a message out there? It's not, but what I'm saying about that is, like, guys, if they're together, because if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, there was a video of Jalen Green and Josh Christopher. I can't mention what it was, but it's like, if you guys are together, then say it or hide it. But that being the video that goes out there, you guys have young, impressionable fans, and them seeing that they're gonna be confused, and they're not gonna know what to do, and they're gonna be like, what is he doing, right? And it's like, that leaves a scar. In the NBA, we have a problem with these young players. They are making it to the NBA, getting the money which they deserve, and then you see cases like Zion, Miles Bridges, which just are extreme cases which should never happen. Like, I'm sorry, Zion's case is more understandable, but it still is not acceptable. But like a case with right? Like, why you do not need guns. You have security, just hire them. You have enough money to pay for your whole family's security. And with a case like Miles Bridges, like, what message are you sending to Hornets fans, to Miles Bridges fans, to young fans? And what type of headlines do you really want to be making? I do believe that there's change that's needed, that should come, and that in the future we need to look at these stars and hold them more accountable for their actions that they do.